How's everybody doing? Good. I hope you guys are happy here. Before I do anything, being one who still is using a rotary phone, believe it or not, I need to acknowledge something that I never thought I could do because I'm very ignorant about that. And I want all of you to understand that you're sitting here because a bunch of people who I don't even know kept the club going during the pandemic and past that. So I need to give them a hand of applause, even though I don't know who they are. You kept the club open for all of us. So thank you very, very much. Yes, it is true. I did introduce our wonderful program chairman, and it's an interesting concept that I'm now being introduced by him. It all started when he went out and asked for a program. And I said, I can't say no. I just can't say no. It's been a long time since I've been here, but this is my 50th program at the club. So unfortunately, there's a lot of remembering of all these moments that I spent up here, bringing guest speakers in, making programs, and so on. So I'm very humbled to be here. Now, I'm here because of many people. I know you know some of my stories, but I need to acknowledge the fact that I'm here because of the spirit and the essence of adventure. And that's what I'm going to share with you tonight. Now, again, before I do that, I have to acknowledge some people. The two people I can't present to you are my daughters, who saved my life twice. They're in San Francisco and all over the place. But I have local people who kind of help me out. Now, I always travel alone, which is a detriment to my daughters. They hate that. And this time, I can tell you that something happened. I created a foundation to do to build a school and maintain a school up to date in Cambodia. And there's a lot of people, and some of the club members were donating money. And then all of a sudden, this one guy keeps donating money, money, money. And finally, the idea was that I travel alone. That's the main thing. And I had an experience with a member who said, after we travel alone, he says, what are you going to do for me next? And then I realized that I'm not a tour guide. I don't want to take people places. I'll share here at the club, I'll talk about it, but I don't want to take people. I just don't want the responsibility. I have enough hard time getting in and out of some of these borders on my own. So, therefore, I tolerate it. But this guy, he kept pushing me. He says, Cambodia, Cambodia, Cambodia. And I said, okay, what is it? So finally we made an agreement. We went to Cambodia together. So I'm traveling with this person, which is totally against me. It turned out to be the best thing. First of all, this man, we traveled together afterwards, and then we ended up in Costa Rica. Now, to tell you what kind of person that was in relationship to the adventure, we stood in front of a tree for 5 hours, waiting for a bird to come out. And that bird didn't come out. And the next morning on the door, I see a kind of an Arnold Schwarzenegger message, I'll be back. Well, the guy went out for 3 more hours, waiting for that bird. He did get the picture, a fantastic picture. I'm not even going to attempt the name of the pig, quack-quack-coodle or something like that. But anyway, it then made me understand that there is something else in this person. So we traveled together and so on. So today, unfortunately for him, he's the only one who helps me out with all this technology. And I really do appreciate this. Rick Flores, thank you. Now, these are people that are from the club. And what I want to stress here is that you never know who they are until you really get involved with them. There's another human being here who I owe my life to, and I'm not exaggerating. He knows how to dial 911. So this man, he discovered a city, a culture. How more exciting is that? But the essence of that is not that he discovered it, is that it took him 20 years to do the research and to be behind this whole idea of, I have an idea, I'm going to figure out how to do it, I'm going to finance it, I'm going to go up and down political and all that. I can't imagine anybody else being more of a contemporary adventurer with a spirit of adventure to keep it going for that long. He is not my friend, unfortunately, because I bug him all the time. There he is, sitting laughing at me on my jokes. But anyway, Steve, thank you. Now, This is my 50th program at this club, and so therefore I feel that somewhere along the line it's kind of like the tide end comes. Now when I travel alone, I go to places which obviously I shouldn't be going. This particular time I came back from a trip and I was way back. The school district had already hired or put in place a substitute teacher. He figured, oh, this guy's not coming back. I came back on Monday, which is teacher day, and on Wednesday the students came up, okay? So now all of a sudden, you think, what are we doing? Well, the moment you come back from these trips, you look emaciated, you're almost late. The students bombard you with questions, and they want to know what you're doing, how you did it, and why you're doing it. And all of them say, well, we want to do it too. Well, again, I'm not a tour guide. So in this particular case, I said to the kids, okay, listen, I need to get the year organized. I need to get everything back in place so that I have a job. They said, no, we want to hear about it. So they bombarded me. I said, okay, I'll tell you what, I'll leave the room open at lunch, and you come in and we can talk. So there it is. We're talking in my room, in my classroom, and I'm trying to figure out what I'm going to tell, because I don't want to do a tour for kids or anybody. Now, the next thing was, they were persistent. They wanted to know. And then as a teacher, I thought, well, if they want to know, I'm going to tell them. And sometimes you wonder if you tell them the right thing, they go home and say, well, Mr. Odier said this and this and that, and the parent calls you. What the hell did you tell my kid? Flores, Carlos, all these people. You think about it. Anyway, I said, okay, come to my room, let's discuss things. What do you want? Well, at first I thought, okay, this is going to be just going to Yosemite or make a little trip. So I kind of figured out how I'm going to do that. Now, I'm being anally organized, as you can tell from the club. So I thought, okay, if we're going to talk about something, let's keep a record of what we're talking about, because these kids are bombarding you left and right. Let's do this. Let's go to the moon. Let's go underwater. Let's go there. So here's a list. The first list you see is kind of the first minute of our first meeting, where we all of a sudden decide, okay, we're going to write this stuff down. Now, what do? Well, you let the kids talk. Now, at that age, they're all over the place. They want to do everything at once, which is great, which I encourage within means, because I'm still responsible. And in this particular case, they were talking about going to, well, Africa, obviously, New Guinea. They wanted to go to New Guinea. And they wanted to go to places which excited me. Quite honestly, I thought that was great. So now it got a little more formal. So we met with these kids. Now this is high school. This is high school. We met in homes. We met off the campus, just to not get the administration too messed up. So we're in the backyard making these plans and figuring out who and what we're going to do. All of a sudden I realized that the cat was out of the bag. Now, I don't know how many of you deal with high school students, but once the cat is out of the bag, there's something that you can't put the brakes back on. So you have to have an alternative. You have to do something with them that addresses their needs, and in this case, our needs. So we came with some conclusions. We decided to go to Africa. Wow, you know, go to Africa from Glendale, with these kids. Said, okay, well, let's start organizing. Then my question came up, who are we? Why are we going there? Are we just going to go look at natives? Or what are we going to do? So we came up with a term which is called Africa Exploration Team. We quickly realized this was a sexist comment. This was not right. So we changed it to Africa Exploration Team. Now, to identify ourselves, we reached out to the school. Now, the school had, in those days, a class that was called home ec, I guess. And man, I'm still nervous. This is my first time back here. What can I tell you? Jeez. And so the sewing teacher helped one of our students create our flag. We needed to be identified of who we were, but this was a learning, and she got full credit for her class project in sewing and whatever. Now, here's where it got complicated. We decided that we're not going to go there alone. Alone meaning you just don't get a ticket. Like nowadays, you got a credit card, you get an agent, and you just get on a plane and you go there. Okay, that's a good event for somebody, but for this, it wasn't the right thing. So we decided now that every student needed to have an identity with a job that related to us surviving. So we made this long list of what do you need to survive off the land in Africa for 11 weeks. So here's a list. These kids now identified themselves with a brochure. This was our PR brochure that we took out to everybody when we needed help, and we'll talk about them later. We made a statement, a mission statement. That was very difficult because you remember they're in high school. So these high school kids are not going to go out, whatever, understanding that a mission statement is the basis for an operation, which brings everything into perspective. If you look at the bottom right-hand corner, the objective was to land in Senegal, go all the way up to, first to Gabon to see Dr. Schweitzer's camp, and then go all the way up to the north and cross into Algeria and come back from there. So that was our plan. We were going to cross the Sahara Desert with camels and all that. Well, it's kids, they have ideas. Oh, let's just cross this desert. It's no problem. Now, all of a sudden, I start telling kids, well, do you know Africa? Look at that. On the top right-hand corner, that's Africa. Look what all fits in there. We're not just going to go on a little weekend walk, all of that. So quickly, it became real as to what we could do or what we possibly couldn't do. But that didn't mean the spirit was gone. They were going to do that. And when I say they, it's because all I became as a team member. On the left, you see where we ended, and these are the 4 major spots where we got hung up before we could get to come home. On the bottom right-hand corner is unfortunately where we ended. Now, each student had to learn something. This person, Rick, Rick, he became our communications director. And we had set up an international, now I even forget what's called, ham radio operating connection. Who trained him? Lockheed. We took him there, and for 6 months he was there learning Morse code. He was learning how to, oh, thank you. Vince, my savior here. Okay, now I can go, right? Jeez. Wow. Anyway, so he learned how to operate that. The problem was when we arrived in Nigeria, there was the Biafra War, and what happened, they confiscated all our equipment, so we couldn't communicate. So Glendale was without communication with us for the whole trip. Vicky Fry, she was the one who decided to do interesting research into the nutritional value of insects. So we hooked up with the Natural History Museum, and for 1 year she learned how to pick insects, identify insects, classify them. So we brought 40,000 insects back from Africa for the museum. So that's an accomplishment in itself. She then did continue in Humboldt with a national, what they call, wildlife reclamation, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so it became a job for her. Now, on the bottom right-hand corners, when they found out we were doing this, people were bringing us all this stuff to the classroom. This guy brings a whole long snake, so we dissected it in the sink. You know, you can imagine being the principal, walking into that room. What are you doing? And it was a wonderful principal. He said, please just tell me what you're doing before you do it. I said, well, it's easier for me to ask for forgiveness and permission. And he just started laughing. But anyway, so she did, and she got a lot of publicity on how. Now, just to quickly say, you have 4 major African slugs. They call them slugs, but they're actually kind of termites. That feeds a family. The same equivalent of 2 steaks. Now, think about what it takes to put 2 steaks on the plate. The farming, the growing, the selling, all of that. So here we are, all of a sudden discovering a whole new avenue of nutritional value, which helped the world. This person here, Kathy Zeal, her job was to do the medical. So she had to know everything about possible medical. On the bottom right-hand corner, you see one of the most deadliest snake, which is something that we didn't want to find. We did find, we killed it. And on the top, you see an anti-venom. That's the only venom that they had at that time that supposedly would prolong the death or the suffering if you got bit by the black mamba, or go to the hospital. Well, there's no hospitals there. But anyway, so that was kind of a tricky thing. Now, the bottom left-hand corner is a set of survival gears that the pilots use, and also the Green Berets. So now we're out in the field with the Green Berets, and they're training us. And some simple thing, where do you go to the bathroom? Well, you figure out if the water is running this way, you don't go here, you go here. All of these things. Now, if we had never left Glendale, these kids, I feel, would have had already an experience. Now, on the bottom left-hand corner, you see all of us needed to be confident with ourselves. So we went to the Red Cross, which gives training for the paramedics and for the police, and we took their course, and we became qualified, whatever title they gave us. So here we're learning how to deal with someone who broke their back. Anyway, I thought we were prepared. This man, Pat, he was a hippy-dippy kind of guy. He was into drugs and all that kind of stuff. And all of a sudden, he says, you know, I want to look at the cultures. I said, oh, great. Unfortunately for him, it just was such a turnaround. But what he did, he took us for 2 years to all the museums, all the exhibits, with all the people in LA that had anything to do with the 5 countries that we were going to go visit. You know, I have to remind you, these are high school kids, and I'm kind of the tail end of this experience, and I'm going, what did I get myself into? But it was too late to stop. Now, one of the other things that he did is he made contact with the 5 different countries' ambassadors that were in LA. And these guys said, what? What are you doing? So they all invited us. And I tell you, after we went to these ambassadors, we learned so much. They gave us papers, they gave us contacts, they gave us information, and we were really well equipped with those 5 countries. Now, also, simple things. What do you bring? What do you give kids? How do you exchange things? Well, that little ball was one of the #1 things. Now, this Heather was into animals. So she wanted to collect the information on indigenous animals, which is not easy because you can't always find them. So anyway, so she was trained also by the History Museum and by the zoo. There was 2 wonderful docents there who took her and had her do all the things. Valerie at first was an alternate, and she was in charge of the support team. She did go on the trip, but the main thing that she did, she was a support team, and she learned how to do certain things, and then she became a valuable member. I think the most important thing for us was water. What do we do with water? So again, courtesy of the, I think it was the Air Force, special team, Air Force, I don't know what their special team is. They gave us these kits to purify water. So it's cotton and iron and all sorts of chemicals in it, so we had fresh water. But every day we had to process this water for us. Now, this is a support team. Now, folks, I don't know if you ever do anything, but these are all kids who wanted to go, couldn't go, but stayed with us for the entire year to raise the money and make us happy with the funds. I say happy because every time we got $1, we kind of celebrated because we knew we had a big, big bill to pay. To go from here. Now, the other thing is, no parents were allowed to pay. We accepted no money from any parent. Every penny we decided we have to earn. And so we were sweating it. Are we going to make it by the end? And these are the people who helped us out. They introduced us to the Lions Club, to the Kiwanis Club, to give the programs and solicit money. They collected newspapers, bottles, cans for these 2 years. And so we did make a budget. Now, quickly, we had to figure out other ways to go into the community. So we collected all books, everybody donated books, and we then had book sales at Christmas everywhere. What I need to say is that these companies, like the marketplaces, they were all supportive. And that to me kind of tells me, okay, you're doing the right thing, but I was still nervous. By the way, that's my daughter on the left, so she's there. What are you doing, Dad? I said, well, we're hustling for money. we're selling stuff. Now, the cupcakes were donated by somebody, and I hope they weren't poisoned. Others made stuff, and all these people that came to this table received information. It was kind of an undercurrent because Glendale at that time was very prejudiced, still very are, and nothing really happened, but they came and looked. They checked us out. And the principal used to get some calls. What are these kids doing? So, oh, well, you have to ask Pierre. Well, I wasn't around for that. Now, I think the primer thing that I'm proud of is my school's name is Herbert Hoover High School. And we had a raffle, a big raffle, and then we collected maybe $1,000, $2,000. And now we thought that would be kind of cool if Herbert Hoover III, his grandson, would pull the raffle. And that's him pulling the raffle. Well, the good thing or bad thing is that the news found out about it, and they came, whoa, what are you doing here? So it was a feather in our cap, but it was kind of like a connection between the school and Herbert Hoover. This is just to show you the chart, how we plotted out every penny. We went, the one big thing we did, went to the shows, the Johnny Carson show and so on, and they paid us to be sitting in the seat. And that's where all of a sudden we saw all this money coming in from many different directions, and we made our budget. Now, yes, the news got a hold of it. And when you have news, this is the trickiest thing in business, or not in business. They can tell stories that make you look like crap, or they can praise you. We were kind of neutral. This guy kind of was neutral, but they all kind of said, there's a crazy teacher that's cool. So I said, okay, fine, I'll do it. Before we left, we had many, many IOUs. So what we decided to do is get the Glendale Center, and we gave a party. And we printed our tickets. We sold this was the last fundraiser banquet, and we were there. Now, all the support team that was there was in costume, in an Africa costume of one or two tribes. We decorated the dining room there, the student center dining room. This is the custodian saying, are you going to clean up? I said, okay, yeah. But anyway, now, oops, the support team, you know, I felt sorry because I couldn't take more than the team we had, but they were so loyal, and so that party was in their honor. Now, what happened was that the Cal State Art had an African dance program in place. And someone made a connection and said, well, we'll come and perform for you. We'll show you the dances and the music that they have in those 5 countries that you're going to visit. So my principal is on the far end. We had the dinner there, and it was wonderful and so on. And then they came and performed. Now, that was another issue because all of a sudden you realized the richness and the culture. Now, the adventure in this particular thing was, for us, is not to be the adventure, but to understand that when you're confronted with that, you will have an adventure you never had before. Yeah, well, we danced. This guy on the left, on the right, I don't know who he is, but, you know, they all say, oh, you got to do it too. I said, I'm too old. Well, that was then. You're too old. But anyway, so we're dancing like crazy. Now, before we left, the news came, and the parents came, and that's the first time, that's about a week before we left, that the parents greeted each other, and one father said, well, the reason I never said anything is this is crazy. You guys are not going to do it. But let me tell you something. If a parent asked a kid a question, that kid had an answer. What insurance do you have? How are you going to do it? I never talked to any parent, and that was my goal. I said, if we're going to do this together, I'm not a tour guide. We're going to do it together. That's a big risk because these kids don't really know all the legal aspect. I had many issues that we had to deal with, but they did it. Now, the day before we left, the newspaper came down and wanted to see us, and so they took that picture of my team. And now this is the team. On the left is the principal, on the right is the mayor of Glendale, and that's Channel News pictures. So we're ready to go. Okay, we're in Glendale. How are we going to get to New York to get the plane to go to Africa? Well, what we did, we contacted some companies that were transferring people back east, and finally we ended up driving their cars over there. I thought, wow, and then they paid for the gas and all that. And we camped out on the side of the road. Now, this slide is significant because I tell you, the day before we left, these parents were coming out with wagon loads of food. And they just go, okay, whatever. We paid our way across the country. We went on somebody's property. We gave them food. And this is one of the little camp places. And you can see we're sorting out the food and giving it to the people who let us stay there. Now, sorting out the food for 11 weeks from home, that's another task. That's another task, and we were very diligent about it. This now we're in Philadelphia, and this is the final time where we're figuring out who's going to carry what, where's the med. Now, when you're in the middle of the jungle, how do you know what member on what backpack is what? So we had lists, we were organized. I think we were. Sometimes we had many mistakes, but we were. Now, this is kind of the American farewell party in Philadelphia. Now, this to me was a moment where there was no going back. You know, it's like a pregnancy that never comes real, but now it's real. So you have to deal with that. The thing that people criticize me for is, you're the only adult. I said, no, you got that wrong. I'm older, but we are a team. And everybody in that team backs everybody else up as if they were an adult or not. So let's not talk about this condescending attitude, well, he's just 16, 17 years old and what. No, we're a team, we trained as a team, and we depended on each other. It's just almost like in the Army. Now, the family that supported us in Philadelphia came to the airport, and every one of their kids wanted to go along. Well, they got to go to the counter, put us on a plane, and there we went. Now, we arrived, as you say, we came into Senegal, we made the 5 countries, we ended up in Nigeria. Well, if you know what was going on, then there was the war, the Biafra War, and we were stuck. Now, the other thing that is retroactively interesting, we had no connections. We had made no connections. So everything was kind of winging it as we were going along. Now, on the plane was a lady who said, well, we can go to this place. But when we landed, the school that they said was open, and they were there with a few students holding the school down because everybody else had to go fight the war. Well, that's where we were. Now, the dean of the school gave us the okay to be on their property. This guy here is the one who kind of took care of us, showed us around, gave us a lot of wrong information, but he did. Well, he wanted us to go see his tribe or whatever. But the point was, all of a sudden, one day, the dean of the school sends us this heater there. He says, now you have hot water. I said, okay, what are we going to do with hot water? We were already used to this. We were washing and cleaning with whatever was there, but it was just the idea that he was helping us out, even though he was not allowed to do that. Because, like I said, it was a war, and all his students went up to fight it. Now, in this particular moment, when you don't have a plan, you make a plan. And we decided, rather than to staying in the Lagos, in the area, we'll go inland. We'll just go inland, travel inland. How do you do that? Well, they have buses. Okay, we had 2 buses. One team on one bus and one on the other. And so, oh, that's pretty good. But guess what? They split. One went north and one went south. So we're stuck in the middle of nowhere. And we kind of look at each other and say, well, we'll find each other. And we did. At this cross-section on the bottom, which is one of those places where they sell bananas and bread. And we're there, we pretended it was okay. Now the top right-hand corner is one of those tickets that we had. Now the bottom left is where you see, we had a way when we set up in a circle. So our most important papers in the center, and we kind of protected it from the outside. But we didn't have any problems. Now, Pat's job, since he was one of those happy-go-lucky guy, when we went into a village where we didn't know anybody, he was to distract everybody. So the thing that he decided to do is to play with the kids, playing Frisbee, while we were figuring out where our contact is, or what contact we could make to stay there, or whatever, official or unofficial. Anyway, so this is demonstrating. But then he also started bringing out the camera. I said, okay, if you can do that and they accept it, that's fine. But we were all of a sudden welcomed by who knows who. So this lady said, listen, I'm not here. I'm from the village back in the middle of the rainforest or jungle, or whatever word you want to use, because it has many detonations. And we said, okay. She said, listen, why don't you stay here for a couple of days and come to my village? Well, there's the connection. Now, when we came to that village, we had to meet all the officials that they had to okay. It's not just walking into village. First of all, some of them had never seen white people, certainly not 16-year-olds from somewhere else. And so we're tripping into that village, and this is the head priest, a very humble man, but a beautiful person. He said, okay, and he explained to me his hat, and his hat had many hundreds of years of tradition. And I thought, okay, now we're in the real world of their world, and we need to know what we're doing. Well, again, that's where Pat's information came handy. He took us in the village, and he said, okay, now you're part of us. We didn't quite know what that meant, but we were thankful because this is the first time now we had a house. They gave us a house. So all of us were in there with the chickens and the goats and everything. You know, it was the best place I've ever been. We all slept on the floor. We had a whole system going on. And that picture in itself reminds me of what we did. We quickly identified ourselves, so when we come back home, I can show the pictures and identify where we were. Now we're talking about food. What do we do? We had some food that we could last maybe a week or so, you know, packs and stuff. But quickly we realized we had to make our own food. And one of the main things there was the native stuff that half of it we don't know. So we went to Val. So Val now is responsible for making our food. And that's a great responsibility. And unfortunately, when they help, we quickly realized they will do these smashed peanuts and stuff, but they put pepper in it. They put stuff that we couldn't eat. So Val was sorting it out and making it happen for us. This is the native. Now, obviously, the kids got involved, too. So they figured, oh, we're going to help them make the food. It was grateful, but we never knew what they were putting into it. So we had tasters figure out what it is that they're making. Well, we survived. Now, one of the things that I was doing is I was trying to figure out what we're eating. So I went to one of the women. The chief had 5 women. So I went to one of the women and said, explain to me what it is we are eating. Palm nuts, palm fruit, palm this. And on the bottom is a kind of thing like a cassava. It's a tomato. It's on the ground. But the outside of it is poisonous. So we quickly had to realize we had to peel it off, wash it off, put it on the ground for a day, and then we could eat it. So it became a chore, but it was a pleasant chore. Now, the one thing that they did for marketing, they did the palm oil. They did everything with palm oil, and it was a marketable item for that particular village. And so we helped to make the oil, and in exchange, they would let us use that oil to cook our food and whatever. And all of a sudden, we realized, yeah, here we are. This is our little camp, little kitchen, and these containers of water is what we were trying to save water so we could eat every day. But all of a sudden, you realize we found a hubcap. That became our pan. We had no pots and pans. So we're there cooking. The problem with that is it takes forever to cook. And the other thing is dry wood. So one of the eldest person in that particular village showed us how to split up that part of bamboo, which is dry inside. And so here we are, my 4 little girls trying to figure out what are we doing on this one little hubcap. But it worked. We ate, and it was a great experience. But now, again, I have to remind you, these are kids out of Glendale. They had never been to the beach. What are they doing there? So it becomes also a psychological thing where obviously you're monitoring where they are, what they're thinking, and so on. So the bond became very close, but they become close for survival. It was a survival thing, and God knows what was going to happen to us. Now, here, my 3 girls are bringing in the food. We cook it somewhere else. We didn't want to cook it in camp, because if you cook it in camp around your house, you have 24-hour visitors, and that can become very painful. So we decided to go down the road a little bit and make a kitchen. But you can see, every time they went to the kitchen, they all wanted to know what we were eating. Now, there was a man there who eventually came and he gave us fish. So he gave us additional food, which was nutritional. I really can't tell you how much weight we gained or lost, or how healthy we were. We survived, but I don't have the right, I don't know, it's very tough to identify your nutritional value. They did give us a welcoming party for food. So here, the cassava thing that I showed you in the early picture, they met and they said, okay, we're here to help you out. However, you're not part of our family. Okay, that's an honorable thing to say, but what do you do with that? And I'm sure you sometime had someone say, well, I'm part of your family. And some people, no, I'm just your helper, I'm this, but I'm not your family. This became important to them. Now, what happened here, which is a very funny story, where do you go to the bathroom? You don't think about that. So we talked to someone who says, okay, well, let me tell you. Because all the trees that have these little things on it, they're ancestor trees. So that tree is their grandmother, grandparent, and I didn't want my kids using that as a bathroom. All right, so we went out there, top right-hand corner, and we figured we were smart. So the trees that were not related to ancestors, we put little red ribbons on them. So at night, we'd go find them. Okay, we went out that night, no red ribbons. The next day, we saw girls running around the camp with little red ribbons in their hair. So that was our bathroom experience, and it's charming, but boy. But then finally, we built our own bathroom. We dug a huge hole, and we put a tarp around it. It was leaves. But guess what? Animals went in there, take the toilet paper, running around all over the campus. So I'm going, okay, we can't win. Our priority was the water. And they said, well, you can drink this water. And we said, okay, but at night we took our chemicals and we purified, but they gave us this kind of trough where we could collect the water. Unfortunately, it's something that you don't want to mess with. Water, in those environments, you don't want to mess with. I remember the days when they say Montezuma's revenge in Tijuana. Well, you have that, you're miserable. The other things now is starting to appear, even though Pat had done a very good job researching these people, is mystery. They said if this little cup or bowl falls off of this structure, it's the end of the world. Well, I made sure that nobody got close to that. I can assure you that. But it was their belief, and it was on such a little needle area of such a deep belief that this is what holds this village together. They had shrines, some of them accessible, but a lot of them very secret. Well, if you're there for, 10 weeks, you start looking at stuff. Yeah, sometimes I feel guilty that we took pictures of it, but I couldn't resist. I couldn't resist documenting what was there. Now, a lot of these things, we don't know exactly what they mean. Some of them were explained to me a little later. This means this means that. But all of a sudden, you realize this is a totally different world. A totally different world that they have this spiritual adventure in their own circle, and we're intruders. So how can you connect this with our team? Well, we did a fairly good job. Now, they started to explain to us that this guy on the right is so-and-so, and he died, and he was massacred, and whatever. And I'm going, okay, we'll record it, but we won't react. We won't say, oh, yeah, we know. We just record it. Now, this here is a chain of death. That simply means on the left, you'll see all these little circles, and that they can tell you when the grandfather died, when the grandmother died, when the father died, when the son died. Amazing. Amazing. To me, amazing. And Pat did not know that, because that's something they don't bring to a museum here because it's all biodegradable. But anyway, we did some research, and then the one on the right indicated that that person is going to be buried there in a couple of days. So all of a sudden, you get into it. Now, communications. You'll see later, we went all the way up north. That drum can communicate beyond any belief. We're somewhere, and someone said, oh, you're the guys who went in such and such villages. How do you know? That's a drum. But now comes the real story. The real story is that these tribes are fighting each other, and they're taking prisoners and making slaves. Then they go to the market and sell their slaves. So the drum on the top is the drum of the chief of my village, the village I was in, and each head represents a successful sale of 100 slaves. It's hard for you to imagine that, especially when you're from here and you read the textbooks, and the textbooks really don't really illustrate what's really going on. Now, on the bottom left-hand corner is one of the most valuable paintings in the world. It's a painting that shows 4 or 5 different tribes coming to market to sell their slaves. Before that, everybody thought, well, the white man went over there and captured the slaves and brought them home. That wasn't the story. Some of these villages, their wealth was based on who and how they marketed in the city, I mean, on the ocean front. And what they did, they did for weapons, for plates, for lanterns, and so on. So that picture is 1872 was painted. So all of a sudden you realize, okay, the history we know is not what it really was. Now, some of these drums have faded because some of these, how shall I say, villages have changed over leadership. And every leader wanted to have their own drum. They wanted to have their own, whatever, claim to fame. But some of them disappeared. Now, even in the simplest thing, the work that they use for daily utensils, I thought they were wonderful artwork. So the one on the bottom left-hand corner, if you've ever been in my house, that's there. But I thought it's interesting that this pot on the right, that life is starting under this pot. It's all related to water. And unfortunately, a lot of that is getting lost because now they are plastic pots and pans. This, ladies and gentlemen, is kind of the most critical point. This is the chief's son. And he started to have kind of like a liking to one of my girls. Okay, what do you do? Believe me, it gets complicated. And so the father came over and says, oh, no problem, I'll give you one of my wives. Okay, now the one wife he gave me had 5 kids. So these 5 kids were on me. I couldn't even go to the bathroom without them. So with other words, they were taking care of me. And I said, how do I do that? Because we were a team. If it was my turn to do the dishes, I couldn't do them. These kids would do it. So it became interesting, and we solved the problem. But it just goes to show the things that you don't expect happen. Now, the good thing that saved us was that one of the wives died. And at that particular time, everything changed in that village. And that's where I kind of evoked the spiritual thing and all of that. And I explained, you know, once you have a death and blah, 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 my kids, blah, 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 religion, blah, 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 I need to take them home. Okay, he agreed after the party. Now the party, these are my 5 kids. I had it made. I mean, you know, if my mouth was dripping, they cleaned it. It was great. But anyway, so all of a sudden, and that was the guard of my house, our house. I say my house. I'm already wrong. All of a sudden, you realize they mean it totally different than you, and you have to respect that. And so the adventure for them is strictly pure. It's not contrived or made up, but they're thinking of, okay, how are we dealing with these foreigners? Well, that's one of the ways to do it. So what we did, we set up a distraction base. So now we told all our team to go out and take pictures and be busy and be visible, not in the one spot where the funeral is taking place. Well, that doesn't work out for long. They brought out oh my God, all these spiritual leaders and spiritual identities. And I always wanted to know what this is all about. But when you're just quick, you see it, you take a picture, you go home and do research, it becomes very difficult. I was in good shape, no question, lost 40 pounds. But mentally, I was so tuned in to what they were doing that I kind of forgot that we're in the middle of nowhere, away from Glendale, with a whole class full of kids. 16, 17, 18-year-old kids. But the help that I got from the environment, the people there, the interaction with their kids and so on, helped me get to the point where I accepted that we were accepted. Now, during the funeral, all these people from all these different villages came down. They were blown away. What are these white people doing here? What is all of this? But all of a sudden, you realize that that burden or that barrier fell down quickly. They settled. These women said, while you're here, we're protecting your house. So how are we going to get in if you're sitting there? Oh, we'll let you in. Now the dancing starts. The women during the day, they danced almost 12 hours. And when you have all these women there, some very fragile, stomping away at the ground, I swear to God, that ground started vibrating 24/7. It's the power of that ground was amazing. Well, at night the men came out, and they had to do a different ritual. But then I look up, and now they're serving the palm wine. You're honored, blah blah blah. And look at what happened. All of a sudden, all my girls are dancing with them. They're just okay. And it was incredible because I think it gave him some pleasure. It gave the village leader kind of pleasure. And I know they'll talk about it forever, and that's something they'll. But my girls, they just got into it. And at night when we talk, because every night we have a little powwow meeting talking what's going on. This is, I danced, and I never danced in my life. I said, well, you made a fool out of yourself. No, 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 no. It was fantastic. But anyway, so they supported us in that. And all of a sudden you realize the barriers that we make here or everywhere in the world, they're not relevant. The relevancy is the connection that you make at the time when you present yourself in an honest way, in a dignified way, with respect. It comes back to you. It might take some time because they have to figure out who these white guys are. And they heard stories throughout their entire history about what the white man or whatever it is. So that barrier came down very quick in this village. And here we are. Now, this is an interesting slide because they didn't want me to drink out of the gourd. They found a glass for me. I said, I'm here. Anyway, so we kind of knew that there was an understanding that we were different. And Pat was not allowed to go further to photograph. He had to sit there on the sideline and watch. So the girls could go in the inner circle with the women and do their dance. Now, the time has come for us to leave. Now, if you remember the map I showed you at the beginning, we were going to go up north to Kano and cross the Sahara Desert with camels. Well, okay, this is the farewell deal. This is a chief, and my wife is on the far left. The kids are sitting on the bottom. It was interesting. I'm not trying to slide it, but it's amazing how these bridges can be crossed with things that you never imagined. You can't read it in a book. So the day we left, he put on his best clothes. He blessed us with his feathers and everything. And I had to surround my local power stick. That stick there, when I walked around, everybody would not bow to me, but they knew I was a chief. I'm going, wow, the power of that stick. But he did not want me to take it out of the village. All right. When I wish I had it here. You come to my house and you see the stick. What is this piece of wood? There you go. Now, I think the painful experience was to say goodbye to the kids, because we really got connected, and it was a connection, something that made them happy. It was an experience for them, but believe me, it made us more happy, because when you're sitting there and you're contemplating, what are we doing here, where are we going, and these kids come and play with you and play jokes and laugh and so on. It's a support system for your mental health and certainly for your spirit, and understanding that the adventure that they have is not only the spirit of the adventure, but is a whole other element that some of us never will experience. So I was happy with that. Now, okay, the farewells. All these local neighbor tribal leaders came to say goodbye, goodbye, and that prolonged everything because you had to take pictures. But look at these people. Look at that. The dignity, the pride, the honor, and how they look at you. It was so much dignity that you almost say, wait a moment, how can that happen? They don't know us and so on. And all of a sudden you realize, okay, we've made it. We've done it. Now, I, being anal who I am, decided, okay, I'm going to start recording some of the stuff. And the kids said, well, we got to go, we could go. So listen, this man came. He's identified by the bottom rung thing on his foot that he's one of the 5 community top leaders. He walked, I don't know how long he walked to come and visit us. And now he's telling us about us. So I'd be damned. I sat down and I wrote notes and wrote notes. Couldn't read my handwriting when I got home. But anyway, so this is kind of where you want to take advantage and you can't really because you're not a scholar. I didn't have what you guys have, these automatic computers where you could just program stuff in. Anyway, now I'm going to learn how to read my handwriting. Anyway, now, the other thing that happened, again, we're trying to leave. We were cleared to leave. Somebody in the news found out and came, said, well, we have to document that. And he took all these black and white pictures, And it took me God knows what to do to get these pictures because I wanted them. So they all kind of processed overnight in a bathtub, not in a bathtub, but in a hole somewhere. And so they came and visited us. And the guy in the center there with his big weapon, he said, before you leave, you need to say goodbye, and you need to honor, and you need to respect our ancestors. I thought we already did that. No, we didn't. Because now, all of a sudden, it did come to the point where they separated the girls from the boys. The men could go into this shrine and be, whatever, saying goodbye and all that. I don't know how you feel, but when something like that happens to you, it's a hard time processing. I mean, if you respect it, you might not totally understand it, but you have to process that they're bringing you into the inner sanctum to say goodbye to the spirits before you leave. Well, somehow it worked out that they said, because the girls were sitting outside, one of the guys said, okay, we'll let those girls come in. Well, that was great for me because I wanted them to have the experience too. But I tell you, I don't know if it comes across what I'm trying to say because it's so complex of who they think and what we're going. But we were in that shrine that was never visited by outsiders. And we say that too often. Oh, no white man was ever here. In this case, it was really true. And so that's why the news came and said, you did what with him? Look at him. I'm going, in our honor? Well, all of a sudden, the little things that we kind of overlooked for a while became relevant because some of these guys in the shrine were saying, well, the women can't come in there because we don't know if they menstruated, we don't know if they're married, we don't know whatever. So this guy takes us out. Again, we're trying to leave. And he explains to me on this chart, everything on this chart says something. It tells you if they're married, it tells you if they're widow, it tells you whatever. And my good old friend Valerie decided, yeah, that's for me. I will check it out. And she had a headache for 5 days after that. They braided it so tight and so neatly, but she had to be part of it. And I respect that because it really gets you connected to something that you would never do at home. So now, okay, we're going north. We got 4 tickets. On the bus, we're going up north. Now, all of a sudden, you can see here the map. On the bottom right-hand corner is where we are, and now we're going all the way up north to Kano near the border. What was supposed to happen there? Well, first of all, a huge switch, because it's all Muslim. It's a whole different scenario than being in the middle of the rainforest or the jungle. And now we needed to adjust, but how do you adjust? And again, going up on the bus, there was a man who was working at the university. He says, well, when you're up here, the kids are on vacation, the students are on vacation, come to our university, you can sleep in these dorms and whatever. Well, we said yes, because it was nice to have a roof over our head, especially in an area we didn't know anything about. Well, there was a time where we started really admiring what the difference is. We look at the culture and so on, and the girls then decide, okay, we have to go shopping. But the main thing of that particular area, one of their income was the dye pits. Indigo dye is a very big item in Africa, especially with the Tuaregs and everybody else. So that was interesting to us. We went there. The sad thing is that some of the powder was shipped in from China. So China had already cornered the market. Instead of using the leaves to do that, they do it in China and sell it to Nigeria. The pits are owned by individuals. So there's a heavy competition if you come there. And sometimes there's beating themselves up because this guy wanted that, this guy wanted that. But my students, they were just in the market buying souvenirs to bring home. Hopefully, the significance of these simple things that they had resonated with him. All of a sudden, we turn the corner, and they call him the king, but he's the head of the Muslim community there. Oh, my God, the commotion, all the policemen and everybody get out of the way. And I just got this one picture before we went, but then we were. Look at that. And all of a sudden, when you talk about faith and religion and all of the things that we either someone didn't talk about or it becomes confrontational, you realize that there's a kernel of something in any one of us. And when you see that and you experience that in such a collective way, you got to respect it. I don't care who you are. Don't give me this whatever. You have to respect that commitment to whatever they believe. Might totally not be what you believe, but anyway. Now, we're going to meet up with the camels, right? Where do we meet? Well, you just go to the restaurant right on the border there. Restaurant on the border. Top left-hand corner, that's the restaurant. That's your food. Yeah, that's where you go eat. Now, what was really relevant in that area is that that area was dominated or controlled by one facet of this tribe. And their monopoly was that they had the well. And all the camels had to be, what do you call them? Well, whatever. They needed the water. And I'm going, okay, so here we are eating. Now I'm looking for the guide who sold us 12 camels. It turned out, no. He only sold us 2 camels. Well, he took the money for 12, but only 2 camels showed up. Now we knew we couldn't cross the desert with 2 camels. We wanted 10 camels for us and 2 camels for the supplies. Well, he supplied us with the 2 camels. He said, okay, you're ready. I said, no, whatever. Anyway, make a long, long story short, we traced him back and we got really pissed off and say, okay, you have to give us our money back because there's just no way. 2 camels for all of us? Well, maybe tomorrow my friend will come from the salt caravan or something and you go, no. So what he did, he wrote on a piece of paper what he owed us. And he said, you go that, and the bus drivers, they will honor that wherever you want to go. I'm going, okay, that's a beautiful looking piece of paper there. But anyway, I'm going, all right, here we are. We did get the bus fares, but now the bus fares meant that we had to go all the way back south to where we started from. Okay, so we're at point number 1. Now, how do we get out of this country? Well, the only way for us to get out was to take the river up to the airport, or to the area where the airport was, in immigration. All right, so now we're on the bank of the river negotiating for these dugouts. What do we know about dugouts? Huh? Come on, give me a break. I'm going, okay, if you sneeze, we'll fall in the water. But anyway, no, they took us, they trained us, they cleaned it out for us, and we all of a sudden realized you have to, it's do or die. You have to do it. So it was a day up the river, a day and a half up the river in those dugout canoes. I don't know who else has that experience. I mean, some of you guys been on canoes all over the world. Remember, 17, 18-year-old kids. I don't know what they're thinking when they come home, but yeah. Anyway, now we're up there. And one of the interesting things was that somehow on the border, they all knew, or on the riverside, they all knew we were coming. And these guys were helping us. They were fishing, bringing us fish. Now, we're in the boat. We're cooking those in the boat. 90% was raw, obviously. But here we are eating. But you see, these are spirited people who helped us create a situation for survival because that was food for us. So finally, we got into the last part of the village on the river, and a chief came out, I think an assistant chief came out and says, I want to give you a gift to represent our country, blah, blah, blah. This is a huge thing. How are we going to take this, how are we going to take this home? So we had to negotiate. And what we negotiated for was they were hiding us in the immigration office until we could get a plane out of there. And we gave them that as a gift. And that was our going away party. All right, folks, this is 12 in the morning. We came back in New York. We had a connection. We had a van to come back here. And the guy came, hurry, 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 get out of there. We found out it was a repo van. It's a van that in LA, there were drug dealers going across, so they repo, and they asked us if we would drive it back home. Okay, we did. But guess what? In Blythe, the engine blew. So I just took it to the dealer there, and I said, okay, do whatever you want with it. And we took the Greyhound bus. So this is us at 12:30 in the morning. 2 days later, I'm teaching. Now, we had a lot of publicity and all of that. But listen, the essence of this particular thing is we were a team, but we could not have done it. So I'm standing here getting your attention. By the way, I should have told you that all my programs that I give in the club, I always have given, I will always find a Mickey Mouse anywhere in the country, any village, any city, anywhere. So if you see my programs and you see Mickey Mouse, you know you're relieved. You know you can go home. So now, this is the last picture of the team, which I honor and I have great respect for. And oh, I guess that is. So thank you for your attention, and we'll go from there.
Take questions?
I don't know what the protocol is. If
The protocol is questions if you have the patience. And Keith Chase, for whom this hall is named.
Pierre, when it's all said and done, are you still maintaining any contact with any of those students?
Yes.
I would imagine so.
Yes.
That must be another story in itself.
It is, because 2 of them are no longer alive. One of them kind of yes, I am in contact with those who can. Yes, I got a phone call the other day. It's hard because, you know, now that it's done, you definitely reflect of what did you do to these kids or for these kids. You know, I mean, it's honest. I was definitely classified as absolutely off the wall. But then I didn't stop. I took them to Barrows, Alaska. I turned them loose with the Eskimos or the Inuits, and they were living in their igloos and doing hunting and all that. And then I took them to South America to live in the caves with the Tarahumara Indians. So yeah, no, I'm crazy, I do stuff, but you know, I wasn't there to count pencils. I was not there to count pencils. Now, to get around administration, you do what the administration wants. I was faculty president, I did the yearbook, I negotiated the first contract. So somehow I had a little leverage there to do with my students what I wanted to do. Yeah.
And if you left a pair of glasses in the dining room, I have them. See me after.
So I have 2. One is there's serious language thing. Were you the translator, or why didn't one of the kids take these languages that sound really difficult?
I love your question. I get that even when I give my own programs, when I'm some in the hills somewhere in Borneo or somewhere, the language, you pick up a few words, but the language becomes more, I shall say, a space, a body language. If I get too close to you, or I look at you, or I smile, and then you smile back, that's an entrance, or you move away. So after a while, you communicate with God knows what means. Now, yes, after a week or 2 or so, you pick up words. I pick up the words from the kids. And sometimes the kid plays jokes on you, especially when we were looking for the bathroom. They had a word for the white man crapping in the woods. So I learned that real quick. But it was fun for when you go to villages and you use their words saying, yeah, I was crapping in the woods. Oh my God, they think it's so funny. And how did you learn that? And where did you get that? So all of a sudden it becomes like an interaction. But the language for me, and I don't know if that sounds good or bad, was never a problem. I don't care where I go. I'll communicate. That's the end of that.
Okay, and so it sounds like my second question was about what did the kids do with the experience? I mean, it sounds like it was sort of mixed, that they didn't, having stepped up to really an adult kind of level of education on their own, it sounds like there was a mixed bag of what they accomplished later, because you've got a 40-year track record now since you took these kids there.
Well, when you say stepped up, I think the moment that the commitment was made by them and they stuck to it, that was it. They made a commitment, they stuck to it, didn't have to, they could back up any time. So that commitment at that point, I think, defined who they were and what they were and where they were going. Now, to predict the future as to how it affects maybe them raising their own kids or something, nobody knows. You really don't have a guarantee, well, you did this, and this is what's going to happen. But, you know, sometimes you just have to, and I think the new term that they're using today is you have to step out of the envelope or out of the box or something. You just have to do it. And you have to have faith that if you do it with faith in terms, I don't mean religious faith, but faith in yourself and the project itself, dignity, honesty, and a conviction that you're honest, it'll turn out. And all of these kids, you know, I could tell you so many stories when Rick got sick and I had to turn him over to a shaman to heal him. Yeah, you start thinking, wow, what's going on? But he's here and he can talk about it. Now, how they digest that, I think at the end there was a little bit of a divorce between everybody because we came back and we were just wow, what are we going to do with it? A lot of them went on and gave programs. A lot of them went, especially in Glendale and elder homes, we were known all over the place. And it came in handy when I started the Cambodia project, and we went back to some of these places and some of these kids, and then they supported us for me to support the school in Cambodia and put kids learning reading and writing. So that's my last project.
Hi, Raymond Castillo, 1233. My first question was answered by Mr. Chase over there, and I just want to say my mother is Tarahumara, and she speaks the language flawlessly, so I'm glad to see that there's studies being done into her culture. But my question is, while your time, did you have any encounters with animals, both positive or negative? And if so, I'd love to hear about it. Thank you.
Well, the one contact we had is with that snake. The most venomous snake in Africa right now. There's another one, the viper. But you know, when you're in this, there's something that tunes in. I could walk and I could hear an animal way over there. Now here I can't even hear you talk. But the animals, they have a sense of who you are. So people say, oh, animals, they're all after your ass, they want to bite you. No, they don't. No, they don't. If you know your place, if you know, respect their domain, you're in their area. We had very, very few confrontation, but they weren't confrontation. They, oh, there went the leopard, or there went the thing, and that was it. Except for that snake. That snake, and it was our fault because he was laying behind a trunk. We had to step over the trunk and startle him, and thank God we were quick enough to cut his head off. But all of a sudden you realize, you know, I don't want to pontificate here, but we are part of nature. These animals are here, and we're here. And to separate us is not relevant. It just doesn't work. So now you have to figure out how to make that bridge, that there's that mutual respect between their territory, their place, and who you are. And sometimes it doesn't work out. Yeah, sometimes a guy will... I read about those coyotes going after the little kids and so on. They're not going after the little kids. They're going after that little thing there, and they feel it's big enough for them to attack. So it's a different mindset when you deal with wild animals. Yeah.
Did you or any other members of the team ever go back to that village?
No. I regret that. No, we did not. We did not go back. And the reason for that, if I went back with someone, then again I become the tour guide, and I'm showing them off what we did and so on. No, I didn't.
None of the other members went either?
No. We did have one attempt. Patrick at one time wanted to go back because his family is a chicken gizmo provider for chicken farms. And he had this idea that he might go to one of these villages and support building a chicken farm for their food. But it didn't materialize. It's too complicated, too much money, too much. Well, you know how it is. You just don't walk in and do it. But he was doing chicken feeders, and so you could feed 1,000 chicken on one line of water, whatever it was. No, that's it. Yes, I don't. I'm blind. I don't see anything of this. So whoever's
got a mic back here if you want one.
I can speak up. In your travels, did you utilize guides that helped you with your travels?
Now you're talking personal, not with the kids.
Yeah.
Yes. The way I do it, well, that's complicated. I go somewhere, and the only word I can use is I try to make connections. And it could start on a plane, on an airport, or in a market. My main place where I make connections in those very remote areas, like Borneo, Sulawesi, all these places, is through the markets. I go right to the market, and I see what they have, and then you could start talking, and I'm looking for minorities. My job, I should have said that. What I've been doing is documenting vanishing minorities. So I go and I find a minority, and then I start talking to them. Hopefully, there's an invite to their village. Hopefully, there's someone there. Now, there are places, when I went to the Golden Triangle during the war, I did hire someone who was a missionary who was dealing with those people. And that was flat out right hiring, but he was the greatest. He knew the language, he knew the tribes, he knew the people, and it opened so many doors for me. But I tried to find a guide somewhere. And sometimes we went to Flores Island and all these. They're there. You just have to find the people who are willing to help you. You have to make sure that you clear how much you pay, where you go, whatever it is. If you hire a truck, I mean, you have to make arrangements. It's not easy, but yes, I do have the help of locals. But they have to know the culture. If a guide comes up and I want to hire him, there's usually a 2-hour discussion over a cup of coffee. I tell them very clearly, I don't want any women, I don't want any drugs, I don't want to buy anything. I'm here to see this tribe. Do you know this tribe? Oh yeah, I'm friend with the chief. Oh really, what's his name? What's he do? Oh, I was there yesterday. Okay, then we start moving towards, can I do it? Can you take me there? Will they accept me? And sometimes they negotiate with the tribes for me to even get in. Yes, that's the way it is. So,
I'd like to get your perspective on the difference between adventuring in 1976 when nobody had cell phones and today's world of instant global communications. How that, in your long view of travel and adventure, how that's impacted, especially younger people's idea of the world.
Wow. Okay, we have 2 more hours for the program. No, that's another thing I was thinking about when I thought I'd come and talk to you people. Most of the time, you present a program and it becomes entertainment for a club or something. Oh, wow, you saw this and saw that. But I realized coming here, there was different, and like your question being very relevant and different. Those are things that gnaw on me all the time. The thing that I cannot really talk about is the modern technology being used, because I have a rotary phone. And however, I remember the first club member to take the first GPS out into the field to come up to Bhutan and Nepal, because a company, the Magellan company, I think was testing it. Said, do you want to go out there in the field and test it? Oh my God, me and my buttons. But anyway, so when you talk about this new generation, I have some certain reservations and fears, because to me, growing up as a little child or a big child or an adult, it's the people contact that make the difference. Now that's gone for a long time. And at the dinner table, I was talking to the president. So now these kids were confronted with a screen. The advantage of the screen, they can push a button and find out whatever they want in the world. How valid is it? How much is it? I'm not the judge. For me, like I said, I was with a guy, we were traveling, and at the end he says, what are you going to do for me next? I realized at that moment what that meant. That they wanted to, not freeload, but they wanted someone else to do everything. And I'm not a tour guide. So I'm still the old-fashioned way. I don't know where I'm going. I don't have any connections. When I first went to China in the 80s, late 70s and 80s, oh my God, it was a closed country. I'm not supposed to be there. But well, guess what? I got in and I got out. Somehow it worked. So when you compare the new generation, the old generation, I think the new generation is a little more self-serving, if I may say that, not offend everybody in here. And I think that kind of some way is going to haunt you. Now, I was told, I think by the president at the dinner table, but there are advantages to that, because these young people, they communicate with each other. All right, I'm tired of looking at TikTok. They communicate. The quality and the level and the integrity of it sometimes, and I'm not the judge, I'm just up here pontificating, making myself feel good. Nope, it just doesn't work. But I have a rotary phone, that's it. You call me, the machine picks up, and my friend Rick and these guys, they also pissed off on me. You should be, Rick calls me Luddite. You need to get out of the cave. Luddite. It's okay. Every day he pulls my leg out a little bit and I'm out. Well, I think you can see by who I am and what I am. And it was consistent. Now, the other thing that you say they communicate on the thing, our old-timer communication, well, for the most part for adventure was the club. So the spirit of the adventure and the idea of adventure was here. You could come back here and you could share stories with people who haven't been there, but they understand what you're talking about. The normal outside, they don't understand it because they haven't been there. So when you talk about the spirit or the essence of adventure, unfortunately, this was one of the only places that I found it. In the club where you could talk to people, and they, well, yeah, they say you're crazy and whatever. And I remember when I used to get certificates, you should see what they wrote on it. Oh, a wonderful program from Pierre, who went, what the hell out, where he went, blah, blah, blah. I'm going, okay, that's fine. So when you talk about the spirit of adventure, you really have to be clear in your mind what it is you want to do. And you can't do it for anybody else.
Speaking of outmoded forms of communication, haven't you written a series of books? Haven't you written a series of...
We record these presentations, and if you don't use the mic
For the internet.
Yeah.
nobody understands.
Speaking of outmoded forms of communication, haven't you written a series of books lately about some of your...
Oh my God. Yes, I tell you what happened. When I was writing way back when, I did a series with documenting 5 minorities. And it's a great book, wonderful, well received. No, actually, the first one I wrote was the definitive definition of Alcatraz. If you go to Alcatraz, the defining book of Alcatraz history is mine. Okay, but here's the thing. After a while, people say, well, we read about that tribe, we read about this, but we know nothing about you. And I go, well, I wrote it, I was there, what more do you want to know? I don't know, maybe a couple of years back, maybe actually during the pandemic, I was sitting there doing nothing. I says, okay, I'll start writing. So what I did, I created a series of a pebble in the sand. Me the pebble, the world's the sand. And I told my story, but I tell you, the first story I wrote is when I was 18 and I took off for Egypt against everybody's will, and my parents were all upset. Again, there was the war going on there, the Suez War. I'll tell you something, I went down my own. I was determined and I made it, I raised my money. Then when I was the war there, and they were going after everybody, I called my stepfather up. I said, he was the president of Firestone, so no problem, he has connection. Dad, he said, hey, did you see the pyramids? Yes, Dad, I saw the pyramids. Listen, Dad, did you go to the museum? Yes, I did see the museum, okay. Did you go to the Valley of the Kings? Did you see King Tut? Yes, Dad. I said, okay, well, you're having a good time, click. I said, I'm calling you for money to get the hell out of here. What's going on? So finally, about 2 weeks later, I got home. I was so mad. I was so mad. And I was rude to him, and I was there. And then he set me down. He said, listen, you convinced me that you were going to do this on your own. I was against it. Everybody was against it. You did it on your own. So you had to figure out how to deal with it. After that, he's running all over the world, bragging about his son doing this and all of that. So I realized when you say something, you make a commitment, the burden is on you. And writing that book was very, very painful because it was a self-realization of why am I doing, when I crossed Siberia on foot all the way, crossing the Bering Strait in the sealskin cave. I'm crazy. But I take onus. I take the responsibility, I take the failures, and I take the successes. So this series that I wrote, The Pebble in the Sand, is telling those stories from the Golden Triangle and French Guiana and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, that's, yes.
Hi, Jay Nunn, member 1213. As a young teacher, traveler, working with these students and kind of mentoring them, how did that change you? Were you the same traveler you were before and after that trip?
Well, it changed me simply, first of all, I understood them a little better. But I think I understood them before I agreed to do the project. I was very close to my students. And sometimes that was a detriment because when you have a connection with students who, some of them are pregnant, some of them just killed someone the last weekend, they're fighting against each other, you laugh. Those are realities. Go to high school sometimes. That's what was going on. And you go, okay, what am I doing here? So you find a place to be who you are. The only thing that I can tell you for sure, never bullshit, never kid anybody. Don't. You are who you are. And you know, there's days coming and say, well, you know, Mr. Odier, well, he's just gay. He's just one of those gay guys. I said, okay, what are you offering? Oh, no, not me. I said, okay. And then the next thing is, oh my God, he's interested in this and that. So you have to understand who you are and be true to yourself. You can't wishy-washy around. The only people who never understood me was the principals and so on. I had one wonderful principal. He said, okay, let me know what you're doing before you do it. So I said, okay. Well, when I took the kids up to the North Pole, I turned 12 kids loose with the Inuits, and I didn't see them for a week. So you have to have confidence and faith that somehow it's being taken care of. You might think this man is absolutely crazy. But here's the thing. I'm going to say this now. Someone said, oh, yeah, that's when back then you could do that, no problem now. Oh, my God, don't challenge me. I'm not teaching anymore. But if I was in the classroom now, I would make it happen again. No matter what the conditions are, I would make something happen. God knows where.
Hi, Ray Perez, number 1219. Thank you very much for the presentation. I enjoyed it.
You're welcome. You're very welcome.
Are there places that you feel that you won't be able to go to that you would recommend to members to go and explore?
Whoa, that's a good question. Well, I've been to 160 countries, always self-serving to investigate vanishing minorities. And I've learned by speaking to a lot of people, when you investigate vanishing minorities, the true vanishing, I was on an island where there's only 7 people left from that tribe. You got to be careful how you say something to other people, because there's a certain way to do it and a certain way that doesn't really work. Now, recommending is, I would say no. What I would say to you is, what do you want to do? Where do you want to go? And get off your, and do it. Now, I remember kids saying, well, we can't do this because we want to go up north. I said, you have 2 feet. The moment you put 1 foot in front of the other, you're closer to your destination. So again, don't tell me this, well, I need money, I need this. You want to go to New York? Walk, go. So that's kind of the philosophy, that if it's in you, that you already express yourself, you want to do something, do it. And you might fall on your face. You might be arrested. The country is being blown up, whatever. But do it, because if you don't do it, nobody's going to do it for you. And unfortunately, there's a lot of organizations that say they'll do it for you. But who wants to go to Hawaii in this hula with all the nice drinks and all that, and you call it an adventure? Well, for some people, that's their life adventure, and you have to respect that. But if you want more, you want off the beaten path, as the saying is for this club, you got to just do it. You got to do it. Sorry.
Chuck Junkie, who knows something about going off the beaten path.
Oh my God, friend.
Chuck Junkie here. I went to Hoover High School when Pierre was teaching there, and he had the greatest reputation. I mean, Pierre was the guy. Nobody else, none of the other teachers did anything close to what Pierre did. And he's very modest, and he did it for years and years and years. But I can testify that Pierre was the man.
You had to show up. No, listen. I made some comments to my friends and my family, for which I have 2 daughters, that I regretted being a teacher. And boy, did they get on my ass. They said, look at who you influenced and what you did. But the reality is that now that I'm 1 foot in the grave and sitting here, no insurance and whatever, you realize that you put 38 years in something, and nobody, not that I want recognition, but the support system for you as a human being, as a teacher, is not there. So yes, you have to fend for your own. If I had been with my energies and my interests, I could have been whatever, somewhere else, and made a lot of money and beautiful and all that. But boy, I do get reminded many times, well, look what you did for the kids, and you're right. I was there for the kids. I wasn't there for the system. The system was the worst. It still is the worst. Let's not talk about education, because I feel sorry. You know, our investment is not how many cars you can produce and all. Our investment is the brains of the children who will make things happen. And if you stifle that, you're lost. Now, I did it the extreme way. I did it more in the humanitarian way. But that goes for technology, too. Why? You know, I was my daughter was concerned that I couldn't call her, so she gave me a flip phone. I said, what the hell is a flip phone? So I'm at the airport. I didn't know how to use it. This 7-year-old kid says, oh, I can show you how to use it. Did it and called my daughter. So you have to realize where you are. But my caretaker, my dear caretaker, this is what she said. We talk and I complain a lot because she's there almost all day listening to my stories, complaining. She says, you're done. I'm going, okay, what do you mean by that? Says, you did it, you did it, you did it, you did it all. You fulfilled all you did. And she's right. She's right, because you do it up until the point where you can't, and then you let it go. Oh my God, you're still all listening. I can't believe it. The one thing some people said, you put a nickel in them and you get a dime's worth of crap. Anyway, well, I think that's it.
We're going to have coffee and cookies in the other room, but first we give out a certificate. Yeah. Oh, and
oh, by the way, thank you. You did not get a CD. This is a calendar. And the calendar is for your important dates, not when you're going to have your hair done or anything. But I realized early that there's really important dates, birthdays of your family, and how quickly you forget. So you open the calendar, you put it on your desk, and you put in there, you know, Bob's birthday, 7th of May. So you will never miss that. That to me was important. So, and all the pictures are from wherever I went. So please, no CDs.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pierre.
Thank you. Good for you? Yeah?